All right, this is documentation of what is terrorism via directed light. This is not sunlight. This is exactly what you have seen, the ongoing methods of surrounding me being present, occurring even in the presence of third-party and state actors, such as, for example, Lorraine Pena. That is, first of all, a demon, and you know her condition because while she's doing something as ordinary as driving a vehicle, this was yesterday in the afternoon after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you were looking at what was the light source over the same exact property where I'm located now at 7:02 in the morning. That is speaking to the pattern of conduct, and that also is letting you know that Lorraine Pena is a demon-possessed person. But you also know that she's a demon-possessed person because at 2 in the afternoon, when I'm at the same address where, by the way, the sun is not going to remain stagnant at one address for the duration of the day. Let's count that. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. That is 7 hours from now. The light source, which is not possibly the sun, which is rising in alignment to me, which is called stalking with light. A demon does the same thing, stalking with light. Stalking with light occurs inside of the private space where the entity is aiming. And I put aiming. You're looking at the presence of engineered light, that which is not sunlight, and the maintenance of the light source, which is not possibly the sun. By the maintenance of this light source, 7 hours at the same address, that's how you know it's not the natural environment, it's not the sun. It's appearing through what are closed blinds, magnified in size in the depths of the apartment. You also see this engineered light appearing on my ceiling. You see it appearing on my ceiling as I do things such as open the front door. You see it appearing in the back of my in the back of my apartment, on the walls of my side bedroom. Just in other words, in other places in the apartment where it's not supposed to be under the false illusion, because this isn't even a realistic or logical one. But nonetheless, it's supposed to be sunlight and sun. But you know that that's not the case. That's how you know this isn't sunlight. And demons such as Lorraine Pena demonstrate that for you as well when they're driving their vehicles. Something very ordinary that's supposedly very common, especially in California. But you're looking at what is the maintenance of, or the occurrence of, something phenomenal. Engineered light moves across buildings while a demon is in your path. That's called group stalking. And demons group stalk you, meaning they get in your path, they cross path with you with the presence, in the presence, with simultaneity to engineered light. And that's the significance of having it inside of your private space. It is also prosecution for what is a sex offense, because this engineered light is present where the government is keeping you under surveillance, and this is the presence of the state, because where the engineered environment is, the state is stalking. All right, so you're understanding what is criminal, what is constructive presence by the government, who is keeping you under surveillance and doing it in concert with group stalkers such as Lorraine Pena, who you saw demonstrating not only her demon possession, but in demonstrating that demon possession, she is also engaging in what is criminal activity on behalf of the state, who you see group stalking on a habitual basis, a ceaseless basis, which is the LAPD while I'm in Los Angeles. This has been heavily documented by the Ontario Police Department, for example. And this is also what you're going to recognize on this day, May 1st, 2022. You're going to reference that documentation. I will upload it to the Compare the P.O.C. folder because while at 7:06 a.m., the light source is here rising. And the light source remains here at 8:22 in the morning, which you already know. Because of the demonic imitation of the natural environment, the entity is literally bound to what is evidence of not only what has been documented, but what logically follows when you are engaging in what is establishing or stating, or in other words, presupposing that this is the natural environment, which is within the body of evidence, relevant evidence in the federal prosecution for group stalking by the state. That this is exactly what's going to be the substantive matter in federal court. And it's no matter of rocket science either. Because at 8:22 in the morning at 225 South Euclid Avenue, where at this time in 2022, I was nowhere near Los Angeles, where there is no shared sky space, where there is not going to be the same sun hovering over the south side of that museum where I was sleeping on this day in 2022, getting up in the morning, and 1806 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 6 on the 3rd floor, where, by the way, just like you saw yesterday, at 10:30 in the morning, the light source is still in alignment with my apartment. We made a video yesterday. I was standing at this sidewalk, and this light source was still at the same location 3.5 hours from now, right over my head. You also know that because at 1:17 in the afternoon, where I have stood on this same sidewalk, and the entity replete with what is stalking by helicopter to communicate a threat, because I document such potent evidence against the entity, was engaged in group stalking in that environment, while that light source that you see supposedly rising, which is, you know that that's not the sun, because 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 6 hours from now, it's still here as a matter of video documentation, hovering directly over my head. That's the pattern of conduct, and at no time while the entity is engaging in that does it coexist with the sun rising over me, which is exactly what I documented on May 1st, 2022, the same time of year, the same day, literally at 8:22 in the morning, the light source, which has already been documented. It stays right here, visible here, meaning in alignment to my window, because it doesn't remain in alignment to my apartment, because I can't see outside of my leasing window, the leasing office window from here. This is limited sky space. I can't see over there. So when I'm capturing, for example, video at the same time, when I'm here at 8:30 in the morning and the light source is here, that's called stalking with light, because if this is the sun at 8:30 in the morning, then when I am facing this same hillside from a direction in that position, the light source is still maintaining alignment with my person, which is impossible to capture. The sun is not going to be visible through both windows at the same time. It would be something to, if even visible at all, beyond this wall, which is limited from my living room. But that's not what the entity is doing. And under no circumstances is going to be present at all, ever, when the sun is rising and setting. As a matter of documentation, pay attention to what I documented yesterday at yesterday, 2022, after 7 p.m., I'm at the Ontario Museum of History and Arts at 225 South Euclid Avenue. And in the morning, on May 1st, 2022, the next day, today's the next day, the entity is setting the sun through a bedroom window, where the same apartment, not the sun. And also you're understanding provides no provision. There is no provision for suggesting that the natural environment has, under any circumstances, the sun rising. So I'm just going through the analysis because this is common sense. You already know that when you're driving a vehicle, sunlight does not swipe across buildings. You have already witnessed what is phenomenal, which is speaking to a hallmark. I have documented this phenomenon happening as a matter of what is systematically amongst a population where the entity is also engaging in a pattern of very highly deranged and intentionally designed criminal activity, because it is criminal to follow from place to place. It's criminal to remain where someone is. That's called stalking. And the police departments are doing this, and they do it in the most frightening way that they can fathom. And this is due to what is the demon possession that they suffer from. And they, as a whole department, I mean every police department, every officer affiliated with the police department are engaging in what is stalking. This is what they are devoted to. This is what they are given over to. And this is what they are practicing as a law enforcement agency, and that is shared in the specific environment. And this is why you are understanding the connection between the environment and the behavior of those. The behavior of those in this environment is that of stalking. It is that of what is malicious stalking. That's what group stalking is. Somebody that is walking in front of you is actually stalking you. They're doing so in what is engineered light. They're doing so in that unnatural environment for a criminal purpose on behalf of a corrupt government who is engaging in what is a matter of what is federal group stalking and monitoring, absent any warrant, probable cause, constitutional bases at all, because there is no warrant or probable cause or constitutional basis whereby government can keep you under surveillance through the people of the state, such as demons, third-party demon-possessed actors such as Lorraine Pena, who demonstrate the fact that the environment is not just there. The environment is there while they are criminally cooperating in that endeavor, which is a violation of your constitutional and human rights. It is also prosecution for what is America's version of terrorism while they are placing American citizens under surveillance. And it is of service to Satan. All right. It is demonic activity. It is currently, again, 7:11 a.m. This is documentation of terrorism via directed light. That's what this is. Federal group stalking and monitoring is terrorism. All right, the entity is stalking you with light. It appears above your head in on the ceilings in my apartment. It appears on the walls as you saw in my office. And at a distance, third-party group stalkers, those are the demons, the people of the state. And all 59 units here are filled with third parties who go to federal prison for this level of criminal facilitation of the criminal acts of a government to keep somebody under surveillance. You are also a violent sex offender in doing so, maintaining an American citizen in this environment so that you can obsessively stalk and monitor them as demons who are already aware of that which is occurring to a level that most people are not aware of. But the demon possessed, they know what you're doing even when you're not physically in the room with them. This is also exhibited through the behavioral pattern. And I've also provided evidence which is relevant for the federal prosecution of the government and the people of the state, because you are looking at the demonic environment. This is evidence of demon possession. You're witnessing that which NASA cannot get on any stand and be any expert on with regard to explaining, giving any sort of explanation as to how this is possibly the natural environment, because it is not. It is rising as a matter of evidence 6:45 in the morning and setting as a matter of evidence 6:30, 6:45 in the evening, visible through the same windows at the same address. That is impossible. In addition, you can document, and NASA could not explain what is the light source that's hovering over me at the same address, 2:11 p.m. when you're going to witness Lorraine Pena demonstrating both her demon possession and her criminal conduct of crossing path and light activity creation, and the impunity with which she acts. With all of that is relevant to her federal prosecution, and she represents the state, the people of the state. And she's doing so within 2:11 p.m. and what is 7 o'clock in the morning. That is the time frame for what is the pattern of conduct. The sun is not going to be present rising and still remain present at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is what is required for me to capture that video evidence. And under no circumstances is sunlight or the sun being over you going to create the pattern of engineered light. This is what you see commercial actors such as Universal Waste practicing, and it's terrorism. And that commercial actor and that third party are subject to what a prosecution. And while the entity acts in concert with corrupt law enforcement agencies, therein lies time in federal prison. This is what DoorDash was documented engaging in, by the way. Remember that after 5 p.m. I'm at the same property. The light source is hovering over me, and the Los Angeles Police Department is flying over me. That's the specific environment. Those are all hallmarks. And you have what is crossing path light activity. The fact that they're delivering to a third party group stalker who lives at the property is not limiting federal prosecution to Vanessa Drees's daughter of 1812 number 5, which is what the entity sought to suggest. Okay, because the entity knows that it's being documented. Let me be clear. If group stalking was limited to just the people of the state at Alvarado Gardens, then I never would have captured the specific environment at Ontario Museum of History and Arts where I was sleeping at 225 South Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. I never would have documented the specific environment at 2301 South Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. I never would have documented the specific environment at the Ovid Family Community Library at 215 East C Street in Ontario, California. Okay, I never would have documented, by the way, the specific environment at Starbucks at 706 West Holt Boulevard in Ontario, California, at 835 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California, at the intersection of Ramona and Holt and Montclair. If the specific environment, if the criminal act that's necessarily occurring between the state and the people of the state was limited to Alvarado Gardens, which is why DoorDash and DoorDash's employee who confessed to me, they admitted on video evidence that they were there in the name of DoorDash. That's the federal prosecution of DoorDash. That's the identification of a group stalker going by the name of DoorDash. And that third party that is in the presence of the state monitoring together, that's federal prison. And it does not matter that you're engaging in what is the communication on the phone, identifying the third party. That's what the entity sought to do. I want to be clear. It's an admission. It's the use of a communication device. It's federal stalking behavior. It is an ongoing admission against the entity who is engaged in the pattern of conduct. Any means of any criminal facilitation is federal prosecution, period. And you know why? Because the government is threatening your life, engaging in patterns of kidnapping, engaging in exercise of fictitious authority while it is placing you under surveillance, and then controlling, being in the position that it is as the government. This is the court, where there's no sun. I documented the P.O.C, where the sheriff's department, where they are the demon-possessed, they're state actors engaging in what is the state system. And they're group stalkers, and the entity is engaging what is surveilling you, stalking you day and night in police vehicles, in helicopters, fire trucks, fire stations, ambulances, demon-possessed EMT drivers, and at the hospitals and facilities. They're monitoring their group stalking. They are in positions at the same time to manipulate your future, your reputation, your liberty. Having that amount of control over the targeted individual's life to not only engage in the criminal act against them, but then alter the circumstances and literally create alternative facts regarding whatever the entity decides to happens to them, that is intolerable. And the federal government necessarily responds by disbanding, by time in federal prison, by necessary mental examinations, by placement being published on on a list to be maintained by the Department of Justice based on the threat that entity poses to American citizens and in the world. It needs to be known, because this is what these police departments are doing. The police department represents the government. That's the state. The sheriff's department represents the government. That's the state. The courthouses, it is literally the state. Literally. Okay? And they engage in what is making up information. They're abusing the positions that they have while engaging in this criminal system that I'm exposing to you. All right, it is currently 7:17 a.m. This is documentation of what is terrorism via directed light, and you're still looking at the presence of engineered light. All right, This is P.O.C. It's impunity. It's ongoing impunity, the impermissible threat, while I document day to day the criminal surveillance that I remain subject to, including in the workspace. And don't forget Todd Speaker, a third party, the people of the state. All of this is happening on his watch. Todd Speaker is in the same position as DoorDash, in the same position as Ryder, in the same position as Universal Waste Systems, in the same position as Nova Contractors Incorporated. The malicious guise under which the criminal system of federal group stalking and monitoring is underway, and he's going to be subject to civil and criminal prosecution. But I also want to go further. Todd Speaker was actually group stalking me when I went to Palo Alto, where I was subject to the pattern of conduct. That's grounds of federal prison when it's occurring in the workplace. Just want to point that out. Again, it is currently 7:18 a.m., and this is P.O.C.